Good morning, dear beloveds. Welcome to Fountain Street Church. I want you to know that whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your theology, whoever you love, however you identified, you are welcome here. You belong here with us. I am the Reverend Mariela Pérez-Simons, and I serve as the senior minister of this congregation, and I use she, her pronouns. And I want to say welcome, bienvenidos. We are glad that you are spending this morning with us here in this virtual community, because everything I know about life and about how to survive difficult times points me towards this, that it is in community, it is in this coming together where we find hope and strength. Today, in this beautiful service that we have planned for you, may you feel nourished, may you feel uplifted, may you feel grounded, may you feel loved. Welcome again, bienvenidos, and we are so glad you're here with us.
Good morning. I am Reverend Matthew Cockrum, Minister for Spiritual Care and Practice here at Fountain Street, and I use he, him pronouns. We acknowledge that Fountain Street Church occupies ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, now known as the Three Fires Confederacy of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples, the first inhabitants of this land who continue to hunt and gather, to pray and sing and live here. In particular, this building resides on land that was ceded or taken in the 1821 Treaty of Chicago, which gave the United States of America control of land over to the south of the Grand River. This congregation and its ministry are an outgrowth of a mission station among the Ottawa Indians, and this land was gifted to the Baptist community in May of 1921 for the price of $1 by the families of the Rickenbaugh and the Freemans. In this small step, we acknowledge the legacy of genocide and deception and theft to which we are heirs and which we are responsible for correcting and atoning. We also acknowledge the ancestors and the survivors of this place. We embrace and accept the ongoing opportunities to make restitution and reparations, and we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and give voice to continuing efforts to hold ourselves accountable and to being held accountable to the needs of First Nations and Indigenous peoples.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Christopher Rowe. You can call me Reverend Christopher. I use he, him pronouns, and it's my pleasure to serve as the executive minister here at Fountain Street Church. It's also a pleasure and an honor every week to light the candles with all of you. You'll notice in the email this morning that went out that I encouraged you to find a source of light. It could be a candle or a flashlight or a little battery toy or a sacred object, and to bring that close to you, because this is the moment in the service when we bring in the light that's within and that connects all of us, even though we're separated at this time physically. We always start by lighting the candle of peace, and as we do so, we pray that peace will burn within our hearts, that it'll be nourished for all of us inside these sacred walls and beyond them. And then we light this second candle. This is called the candle of peace, of love and compassion. We pray that love and compassion will be nurtured inside all of us, whether we're here in these walls or beyond them. And of course, we light the candle for justice. And as we do so, we pray that justice will be known by and experienced inside all of us, within and beyond these walls. And finally, we light this candle of community. The candle I invite you to light at home, or the light bulb I invite you to turn on, or whatever you need to do, to remind us that even though we are separated physically right now, these lights, peace, love and compassion and justice, are all things we share in our hearts during this time physically distanced from one another. Blessed be you.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding you. There is a love holding all that you love. There is a love holding you. You rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. You rest in this love. I rest in this love.
Good morning again. Some of you know that I wasn't here last Sunday because I was in northern Michigan. Although technically I was in two places at once last weekend, because virtually I was also 900 miles away in New Jersey, giving a short lecture for the 250th anniversary of Universalism. The conference was titled Love with No Exceptions. I was asked to speak of a love that won't let you down, a love that won't let you go, and a love that won't let you off. And so I share with them my modern interpretation of universalism today through four main stories from my own spiritual journey as a religious naturalist. I told them how I was born in Cuba at a time when religion was forbidden there, which was extremely frustrating for this seeker of not only the truth, but a seeker of the religious experience. I grew up with an almost insatiable thirst for the awe and wonder and reverence that one feels in the presence of something larger than the self. Since I didn't have access to formal religion, I found what I was seeking, that love, that connection, that nourishment. I found it in the natural world. The first experience I remember was this. Around 4 or 5, I was around 4 or 5 years old, and some of you have heard this story, so forgive me if you have heard it. But one day, in the middle of a hurricane that was threatening to blow away our tiny house in Cuba, I decided to look outside through a tiny crack on a wall, and what I saw there left me without words. There was something so transcendent in the sheer force of that hurricane that I never forgot. The rush of awe and reverence I felt moving through my body at that very young age made me feel like I wasn't separate from it, that the same life force that ran through my veins ran through that hurricane. I felt this expanded sense of self, a sense of oneness with the force of those winds. The second story comes from a couple of years later when I was eating this super ripe, super sweet mango from the pit, and I remember the delight as the bulky flesh melted on my tongue, the juice dripping down my arms. It was a religious experience of savoring. Did you know that life gives you 10,000 taste buds for your savoring pleasure? It's amazing. The third story comes from decades later. I was already in seminary and I had to work as a chaplain at a hospital. And one day, when I was outside breathing some fresh air, a nurse asked me about my denomination. And I said, I'm a Unitarian Universalist. And she says, a uni what? Never heard of that. Are you a Christian? She asked. And I said, I'm not. Then what do you believe in? She asked half jokingly. And before she had walked towards me, I had been mesmerized by a dandelion that was growing through a crack in the sidewalk. Now I pointed to it and I said, I believe in the life force that makes that dandelion grow through a crack on the sidewalk. I believe in that resilient life force, that almost stubborn life force. I mean, what are the chances of that dandelion growing from down there with such little soil, such little light, and so much cement oppressing it? I believe in that life force. It is the same life force that makes all of this possible. The sunlight on our faces, the air we are breathing, the food we eat. I believe in that life force. The nurse nodded and seemed satisfied with the answer. The last story is from around the same time. I attended a forestry class where we were taught to find edible plants in the wild. By the end of that session, I had this big, huge bowl filled with delicious, life-giving plants. Dandelion greens, wild mustard, spring onions, berries, violets, mushrooms. And I was like, my goodness, what have I done to deserve this generosity, this kindness, this abundance? These are just there, available to all of us. It was one of those key moments in my life when I realized that generosity of the earth. I felt that life had my back. I felt that there was a love caring for me, sustaining me, loving me.
There is a love holding you. There is a love holding all that you love. There is a love holding all. You rest in this love.
What is that love for you, beloved? Do you feel it? I hope you feel that love. What the stories I shared before are from my personal modern interpretation of universalism, as I said, from my religious naturalist lens. That is what I believe in. The life force that created life on earth and that moves through you and through me and through every living organism. It is the same life force that makes possible this abundant generosity. I mean, air to breathe, spring water to drink, sunshine to grow food. In nature, everything gives freely, naturally. Flowers provide food for other creatures. Berries capture the light of the sun and turn it into glucose, which gives humans and other animals the fuel, the energy we need to live. There is an order in life. There is a cycle, and that is a cycle of reciprocity, an interchange of giving and receiving life. And there is also this mandate, this call from evolution. If you are a living organism, and you are, you have one mandate, and that is to grow, to flourish, to evolve, and to give of yourself to the ecosystem. Even my body, when I die, it will give its nutrients back to the web of life, the web of life which has nourished me all my life. As my body decomposes, hopefully decades from now, the fungi will transfer my nutrients back to the environment. And I will then become part of the greater web of life. I will go back to the great beauty as my nutrients will help flowers and trees grow, which will provide food for other animals and for the web of life to continue. This is the natural way. Now, what gets in the way of that beautiful cycle of giving and receiving? What gets in the way of the natural flourishing of life? What gets in the way? Many things. But today I am thinking about greed in particular, because tomorrow this country celebrates Columbus. When this country celebrates Columbus, it's celebrating greed and genocide and everything that Columbus represents, which goes against the natural flourishing of life. From the beginning, from the very beginning, that trip from Europe to this hemisphere was about greed, about wanting more and finding faster and faster ways of getting more. Europeans in those times couldn't get enough of the exotic jewels, spices, silk, and teas that were coming from Asia. And since the ancient trade route that we know as the Silk Road, which had been used for centuries, had become hard to travel then, they needed a faster way to get to Asia. And so this idea was born of navigating west from Europe in order to get to the east. We know the rest of the story, or at least some versions of it. That is how in 1492, Columbus arrived in the Caribbean and in the island where I was born, Cuba, where he encountered the Taino people, some of my ancestors. They lived in a matrilineal society of complex religious, political, and social systems. They were skilled farmers and navigators who composed music and poetry and created intricate works of art. Some words in English and Spanish actually today come directly from their Arawak language, such as barbacoa, barbecue, hamaca, hammock, canoa, canoe, tobacco, tobacco, and huracán, hurricane. 50 years after the arrival of Columbus, the Taino population was close to extinction, but he died wealthy. And before his death, he wrote the Columbus Book of Privileges. The Columbus Book of Privileges, a book where he detailed the rewards that he and his descendants were entitled to from the Spanish crown, things such as titles, revenues, powers, and other privileges. We cannot celebrate Columbus, and by the way, Columbus never set foot in America, and ignore the effects he's had on our modern world. In fact, most of the current environmental, social, and spiritual crises we are facing today, 528 years later, are a result of that conquest and the values it imprinted in our society. That trip and everything that followed interrupted hundreds of civilizations from flourishing, and it disrupted the natural order of life, setting us on a path of greed and destructions. Want to see a graphic of greed? Here you go. This is from 2017, but it is still relevant today. It shows that the richest 62 people in the world own as much wealth as 3.5 million people. How is that much greed possible? How can anyone hoard that much money and resources? And how did we get here? To this place where we not only accept that much greed, but we call it success. How? Partly because of neuroplasticity, because our brains get imprinted with what our culture puts in it. If we grow up celebrating men such as Columbus with a day off of school and work, when we put him and others like him above us in pedestals, when we make movies and glorify them, that's how. How did we get here? Through mandates coming from the Catholic Church, such as the doctrine of discovery, which establish a justification, a spiritual, political, and legal justification for the seizure of lands not inhabited by Christians. Or through philosophies such as manifest destiny, the doctrine that promoted that the expansion of the US throughout the American continent was favored by God. Google manifest destiny and the doctrine of discovery to learn more about that. I also encourage you to read this book, An Indigenous People of the United States, the first historical book written from the perspective of indigenous people. So here we are. Here we are, beloveds, a much different world. So much trauma is still left. So much destruction. So much despair. So many inequities. The rich and the powerful continue to exploit our natural resources and the bodies of the poor to gain more wealth and more power. So much about these upcoming elections in this country are actually about that, about corporate greed, about corporate capital growth at the expense of the earth and the poor. So what do we do to restore the natural balance? From our perspective as liberals and seekers of truth, I think a good place to begin is by understanding how our psyches have been imprinted by these ideologies and philosophies of success. Mainstream American culture has put in our brains that this is what success and the good life looks like. Now, to decolonize our psyches, to decolonize our minds, we now need new theologies and philosophies and artwork and stories and images and practices. Practices that move us from greed to generosity, from separation to connection and collaboration and community. These images on the screen are from one of my favorite artists, Molly Costello, who is doing just that, shifting the narrative. I want her images all over my office to help me decolonize my mind. What if we grow up seeing those kinds of images and hearing stories of people who dedicated their lives to working together for the flourishing of life on this planet? What if we saw statues that promoted kindness, collaboration, and generosity? What if we were taught that we are a part of a greater ecosystem and that every one of us plays a role in that ecosystem? That is part of our work. And then as a spiritual practice, it's also, for me, all about connection, about engaging in relationship with the life force around us and the life force within us. Next week, I'm preaching about our relationship with the life force that moves through us. But this week, I'm thinking about the practices of connection with the life force around us. I have shared this quote before, but I love it. I'm going to share it again. It's from the Zen master Dogen, who said that enlightenment is intimacy with all things. And that's the kind of connection I'm talking about here. I once heard of an individual who, with his eyes closed, could identify the different kinds of trees simply by listening to the sound of their leaves as the wind blew through them. That is a red maple. That is a sycamore. That is an aspen. Blindfolded, he could identify them. That is intimacy. Last week, I visited northern Michigan, as I said, to become more intimate with that terrain. As I traveled up north, I had images in my head of kayaking on the Crystal River, hiking up the Sleeping Bear Dunes, etc. Instead, it was a cold in the 40s and rainy kind of weekend, which kept me indoors for the most part. But by Sunday afternoon, I was ready to get out. So I found a trail in the woods, not knowing where it would lead, and I learned so much on that path. Here are some images I took there. I found different types of fungi and native plants, and I took pictures of them and learned their names, because how can you be intimate with something that you don't even know its name? I was sad, too. I was sad because I had not been able to see Lake Michigan because of the rain. In fact, a couple of times I have been to the lake over the summer. It was in very touristy spots where it was very crowded. And I sometimes say that I love, love, love people, but I don't like crowds in nature too much because they keep me from being intimate with the landscape. So on Sunday morning, I kept walking on this trail. And before I realized that, oh my goodness, the trail opened up to this beach, to the Lake Michigan shore. I couldn't believe it. I had acres and acres of beach all to myself. And I was so grateful for that gift. Then the sun came out, and for the first time in days, and I was like, really? How many more blessings can you give me? Thank you, thank you. And so I took off some layers to enjoy the sun on my skin, and I thought of that song from John Denver, sunshine on my shoulder makes me happy. Sunshine on my shoulder almost always make me high. And I was like, of course it does. Sunlight on your skin increases your brain's release of serotonin while boosting your mood. That's intimacy. And that's a spiritual practice, a relational way of being in this world, of being connected to the sun, the source of life. You see, on the days when I feel like I have failed, on the days when I don't feel worthy, the sun comes out and its warmth on my skin reminds me that I am loved, that I am worthy of this gift of sunlight and serotonin. In those moments, I feel the oneness, that expanded sense of self. In Unitarian Universalism, one of our principles encourages us to have respect for the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. And that web of life means many different things to different people, but to me, it means these two main things. First one, we are a part of a web known as the mycelium network, which is the artwork that is behind me. The mycelium is a type of fungi, a type of mushroom, and it's basically this network, this mass of threads from the earth, which is everywhere, in the forests, in the cities, in the air we breathe, even inside ourselves. It's the earth natural internet. Like the brain or the internet, the mycelium network is all about connections and sharing information and nutrients across the entire system. Trees communicate with one another using the mycelium pathways, feeding one another, swapping nutrients through these pathways of the mycelium. I highly recommend the documentary, Fantastic Fungi, and this, one of my favorite books these days, Mycelium Running. For more information, this is the book, here's the book. For more information on the mycelium network and how it connects to humanity and the rest of life, you can read that book or watch the documentary, Fantastic Fungi. My second interpretation of the web of life that Unitarian Universalists speak of in many traditions across the world, my second interpretation is what I've been talking about, this life force that moves through my veins and moves through the rest of the world. The Bengali poet Tagore puts it beautifully. He says, the same stream of life that runs through my veins, night and day, runs through the world, and it dances in rhythmic measures. It is the same life force that shoots in joy through the dust of the earth in numberless blades of grass and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. I invite you now to please, for just 10 seconds, please find your pulse. Find your pulse and feel that life force pushing against your fingers. I want you to know that you are part of an ancient life force that moves through you. A life force that was here long before we were born, and that it will be here long after we are gone. My life and my work are dedicated to the flourishing of the natural cycle of that life force inside of you, inside of you, inside of you, and inside me, and inside everything. That life is my devotion, even though life can be so hard sometimes, because there are days when I can't see beauty anywhere. There are days when I am brought down to my knees, and not with reverence, but with defeat. There are days when I'm about to give up. Days when I am so angry with life because life can break my heart sometimes. But on those days, life also shows me just how resilient human beings are and how resourceful. We are always finding a way when there seems to be no way. Like that dandelion growing through a crack on the sidewalk. We human beings, you and me, we have this ancient, wise, resilient life force running through us. That is universal. I love life, and I'm grateful for the many, many experiences that life makes possible for us human beings. Human beings who sometimes makes us question whether they are deserving of all these blessings. But life insists that all are deserving, no matter who you are. Life insists this is universal, universal love. Dear beloveds of my heart, we are a critical moment. We are at a critical moment in the history of our planet and our country, when we must choose our future carefully. We know that the way of colonization, the way of empire, the way of dominance have led us to this point of environmental and social collapse. But one of the things about us human beings is that we have the power of choice. And at this moment in our history, this defining moment in our history, we have the opportunity and the responsibility to choose our future. A future where we have expanded our circle of love, making it wider and wider and wider until it encompasses the entire web of life. May it be so.
Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a day could give you. I'd give to you a day just like today. And if I had a song that I could sing for you, I'd sing a song sure to make you feel this way. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a tale that I could tell you, I'd tell a tale sure to make you smile. If I had a wish that I could wish for you, I'd make a wish for sunshine all the while. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. Sunshine almost always makes me high. Sunshine almost always. Thank you, Mariela, for inviting those words, that imagery and that reminder of what sunshine can do. We come to the point in our service each week where we are reminded of what we can do, the generosity of our spirits, of our giving of our lives and ourselves. And our offertory music this week comes to us from activist and musician Carolyn McDade, who penned this song, Spirit of Life, as a hymn. She tells a story of coming home from an organizing meeting. She came home and she said she felt like a piece of dried cardboard that had lain in the attic for years, that if you just opened wide the door, she would be dust. She says, I was tired, not with the community, but with the world. And she walked through her house in the dark, found her piano, and this came out as a prayer. May I not drop out, she prayed. It was not written but prayed, she says. I knew more than anything that I wanted to continue in faith with the movement. It was a living prayer, not a hymn. And so we offer this as offertory music and invite you to consider the act of generosity as that too, an act of prayer, a way of recommitting to the movement of generosity and love in this world. So whether you use the text to give link on your screen, or whether you go through the church website or use Venmo, or simply mail a check, may your generosity be a blessing, and thank you. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Hello again. I want to thank you all for being here with us this morning. I want to thank you for being part of this ecosystem that we call Fountain Street Church. I want to thank you for giving life and love to one another and to this community. I have 3 short announcements for you before we close. The first one is that following this service, we have the deepening experience on Zoom. I invite you to join me on Zoom right after this at 11:20. The Zoom information was emailed to you this morning, and we're gonna go deeper into this conversation about life and colonization and generosity. And the second announcement is that on Wednesday evening, the Reverend Christopher Rowe will be leading our grounding experience, and we hope that you can join him. The third one is a reminder that next Sunday we will continue this exploration of connecting with life, this time with the life force that moved through us, so that we know how to better serve our ecosystem, so that we better know what are our gifts and natural abilities that we give to the ecosystem. We have flamenco musicians to illustrate that point. And now, dear ones, now, may you remember that there is a love holding you and holding all that you love. May you have access to that love. May you be nourished by that love, and may you share that love with others. May it be so. Blessings to you and yours. Thank you again for being here this morning. We love you.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens, all our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks for the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean we travel, and the earth is our blue boat.